Mindbend. Non-ordinary and extraordinary states of consciousness. For Mindbend Creative.
Tia, thank you so much for joining me on the Mindbend podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Been wanting to do this for a minute. Go ahead and tell our audience exactly who you are and what brings you here today.
Awesome. I'm Tian Lynn. I'm a TEDx speaker, sex and intimacy coach, and I have a podcast, Sexy Biz Babe, and I just love challenging the norm and helping women break out of shame, own their confidence, and have better sex, which also helps you have a happier life and often affects your business and career as well.
We were visiting prior to this. I had a session with my friend Gina, who is also an intimacy guide, intimacy coach, and you got to meet briefly on the street outside the studio. Yeah. But, you know, when we talk about Psychedelic Spotlight and what we've done for 4 years as being a community hub for information, empowering knowledge, articles on these topics that are a little bit more fringe, a little bit more niche, a little bit more nuanced. And, you know, the best thing that we can do is provide information to people that can help them have a more empowered experience whenever they choose to either investigate having a psychedelic experience, or being in the middle of a psychedelic experience, or coming out of a psychedelic experience, or they have family who could potentially benefit from a psychedelic therapeutic experience, or somebody who has had challenges come from a psychedelic experience. Knowledge is power. Understanding can help us lead more empowered lives. And that's really what I'm going to do with the platform. When I was visiting with Gina, we were talking a lot about the parallels between the world of sexuality and sensuality and the world of psychedelics and mental health, right? Like two aspects of our lives that are incredibly present and immediate, but there's a lot of stigma around it. And so it makes sense for me at Psychedelic Spotlight to want to bridge these worlds together of sex and sexuality and psychedelics and mental health and wellness, right? Because I feel like if we have the need to get treatment or therapy, or we're looking to heal from something, our sensuality and our sexuality plays a big part in that, right?
100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you know, some of the challenges that people face in being sexual creatures.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Utah, and I experienced a lot of judgment, shame. Sex was very taboo. It was very, you don't have sex until you're married. You don't talk about sex. I didn't even really understand what sex was till I was closer to like 16 years old. There's not really any sex education, and it's so taboo that it's just like hush hush, and like there's just so much judgment. You notice how women and adults and teenagers just spread the shame and judgment around. So that's like one of my biggest things, is to help people heal that shame and judgment, that we don't even relate to shame. We don't really think we have shame, but shame is the impulse to hide something, is like a working definition. And we do have a lot.
Shame is the impulse to hide something.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
So, for example, if you are carrying, like say you wish you could be a bright, colorful, loud, or you're a talkative person and you're just like really afraid to be that person, to be loud, to be bright, to be sexual, you're holding a layer of shame that's not allowing you to be that because of that. And so shame, I often say it's kind of like carrying bricks in a backpack. It's heavy. And oftentimes what I found with my clients is it holds you back in the bedroom. Like shaming your gut, shaming your body, shaming your mind, shaming, am I doing this right? There's a lot of layers that when you unpack those, you can fully like open up and get into your body.
Let's delve more into the origin story. Thank you for that. How did we get from being 16 years old in Utah and feeling like, I don't know, you didn't say explicitly, but I guess out of touch maybe, or not really connected to the emerging sensual, sexual nature of you as a young woman? And then were you raised Mormon? Was that part of the...
So my dad's family is Mormon. I grew up very born again Christian.
Okay.
So I wasn't Mormon. But I was around it, and most people are.
So for you, there was a direct correlation between the religious context of your childhood and your identity with your sexuality.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just, I would say my mom raised me to be a little bit more open-minded. She definitely was like, you know, don't have sex before marriage, but she didn't make it like you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
Like other religions did. But the other religions did. And I'm a naturally like curious person, even as a child. So I just didn't see things the way that we were being taught.
How else did your natural curiosity manifest as a young person, as an adolescent, teenager?
I've never really been in the norm. Like what was normal was to be, I don't know, like jeans and a t-shirt is the easiest example. I wore bright lime green pants and bright purple shirt and space buns. Like as a kid, I was just very like extra loud, talkative. I wore sexy clothing if I were to look back, but I was a kid. I was a very naive kid. I grew later, you know, and so I wasn't like sexual, but I wore like sexier clothing, like short shorts and cute dresses. I was just drawn to it naturally, I think, always.
That's interesting. Some people are and some people aren't. So,
Yeah.
so even though you weren't sexually active at that age, you still had some kind of like connection to being embodied in a particular way through your clothing?
Yeah, I've always been in dance as well. And I
Okay.
feel like dance is very therapeutic and helps women get into their body and out of their mind if you can really connect to the music and be in your body. And I was always a dancer. So I think that also added that, like, I did hip hop and I did more sexy dancing, and I was a cheerleader. So we had like winking and like sexy gyrating and stuff. So I've just always kind of been tapped into that.
When did you know that there was going to be a professional avenue?
Oh, so it's funny. I didn't ever think I would be a coach. I had my own clothing line. I worked as a marketing manager, and then I moved to California without like a plan. I just like up and moved because I just knew I needed to get out of Utah before I got stuck again. And I was just gonna figure it out. I did door-to-door sales and it was terrible. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna figure it out. I'm gonna like figure out what I can do without working for a job in a month. And long story short,
You don't have to make it short.
Okay, well, it's such a longer story. So
Yeah.
there's lots of pieces. So I was like, okay, marketing is my skill, and let's figure out what I can do with that without getting a job, because I like really didn't want to. And then I was in Thailand, and I'd just taken a money mindset course, and it was just already opening so many things in my mind. And so I was like, wow, okay. And I was in Thailand listening to this course, and it was like, make money being a coach. And this was before like everybody's a coach. It was about 7 years ago. So I was like, what if I just buy it, listen to the videos, and see what happens? And so I was listening to it, and it was like, go for the thing that you really want to go for. And so I was like, I'm going to give it a try. So I listened to these videos while on vacation in Thailand, announced that I was becoming a coach on my birthday in Thailand, overlooking this beautiful beach. And I've been a coach ever since. And over the years of being a marketing coach, I noticed coaches being like, oh, it doesn't feel like a job. I love so much what I do. It doesn't feel like work. And I was like, marketing still feels like work to me. I'm great at it, but
Hustling, working on your brand image, and
yeah,
doing the requisite amount of publicity.
yeah, and coaching people. It is work for me.
Sure. The job itself.
Yeah, I love it, but it's work. And I was like, I kind of want to find this. Like maybe it exists for me where it doesn't feel like work. So I was like tapping into that. All of my testimonials said helping people be themselves and being more sexual and being more confident. And then I started keep honing that. And I like started learning and diving and coaching and like sex coaches and things like that. And it just naturally developed.
Was the first iteration in your mind to be a sex coach? Is that what it was?
No, it was breaking out of shame
Okay.
That was like a big thing for me. And I was like, oh, I want to like host this course. And it was just a trial, a fun trial. And then it went really well. Like women tapped in, they had more orgasms, they felt more themselves, they broke up with their narcissistic partners. Like it was like, wow, okay. And people loved it. So I just kept doing that every year. And then I did more trainings and coaching, and I just love it. Like I do it for free, like naturally. And then my podcast took off. My biggest video was the first one I did around threesomes and blowjobs and sexuality.
You had a willingness to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
You had a willingness to talk about shame, and you provided a forum for other women only
Yeah.
to come in and talk about shame around sexuality.
Yeah. Shame also on being themselves. That's a big thing. So many people have fear of being themselves.
And how do you think people get over that fear through coming together in smaller subsections and communities like the ones you're providing, or what kind of work is happening to overcome that sort of fear?
Has exercises and worksheets and journal work. It's so many kids were raised in a household that was making them they're wrong for being themselves. So if you're in those childhood, key areas where your brain is forming and your mom's telling you you're wrong or bad for being yourself for years and years and years, you have to go back in and reprogram it that you can be yourself. But all those years, could you imagine? Like getting yelled at for maybe being too loud or laughing too much or being sparkly, or a boy maybe not wanting to play football. Like breaking down those issues and those beliefs and seeing why it's not fact that you can be a guy that doesn't like football. You can be a girl that is talkative or bossy, these things, and then practicing those and building up that confidence. So there's exercises, there's journal work. I also help people get into their body and practice those things.
So this is bringing to mind the idea for me when it comes to the psychedelic world of, and not only just psychedelic, but if you're engaging in any kind of therapeutic effort, right? Like if you're engaging at looking at bringing who you are to a situation. Mm-hmm. That could be sex, that could be a psychedelic experience, that could be the workplace, that could be your family relationships, but you are in part your beliefs about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking the connection here, if you are working on your beliefs through some kind of proactive, productive coursework and facilitation through a guide like yourself, maybe that could inform how you show up for something like a psychedelic experience, where those beliefs are going to play a part in your experience, whether you want them to or not.
Yeah, like if you start doing the limiting belief work, the shadow work, and things like that, and you have that base, and then you do psychedelics, you can do that with the psychedelics, and then those pathways, you could probably explain this more, they stick. Like you open those pathways and you're like, you could go to years and years of therapy, but when you do it with like acid, or you can like say the facts and whatnot, but it sticks. Like, is it neuroplasticity? It sticks. Like I remember doing acid my first time, and I was in a group of people, and it was a group of people that was like cool, and we were camping, but I was afraid to be myself because I felt too extra, too different from them. And then while on acid, I was like, fuck it. I'm great. They can accept me as I am, which how I usually am. But in this experience and this particular group, it was hitting a different chord, and it just hit, and I stuck to it. And I think that was the point that I was like, I also need to move.
Your body, or
no,
out
like,
of the state?
Out
oh
of the
yeah,
state.
Okay, right. A different environment.
Yeah.
In order to more fully come into who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that can happen when people move into different, and they change their environment that much.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you've had that experience by moving to California. When did you move to California?
7 years ago, 2017.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to set up course loads and designing a curriculum and like we alluded to, the constant hustling and the marketing. Where can you go with this kind of work? Like what do you see as an entrepreneur, and what's the most rewarding part of it when people reflect back onto you the changes that they've experienced through the work they're doing with you?
Yeah, honestly, the testimonials, them seeing a difference. I can see a difference after they take my like Sexy Goddess course or work with me one-on-one, is they start being themselves. And when you take off those masks of other people or judgments and all those fears, you are relaxed. Like in your body, you're more confident. You put your chin up. You can see a difference. Even if you took a before and after picture without them posing or anything, you can see a more calm, free person inside, and you can see their like quirks or uniqueness start coming out a little more.
You said that you were comfortable sharing with us today about your psychedelic experiences. You've alluded to that a little bit with the first acid experience, but tell me what role do psychedelics play in your life currently?
I have super ADHD, I feel like, and I'm like, go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. So sometimes I like psychedelics to help slow me down, to calm, to be in the present, to let go of stress. And if I ever want to go on like a journey, I usually can like come out of it with a epiphany, or I kind of take it seriously. Like LSD, I take pretty seriously. I haven't done it a ton of times. I like to have like, I'm going in, I'm going to come out, and there's usually like a journey or a lesson or something. And I've always had big breakthroughs, I would say.
You went into the experience after the first experience with the intention to make it be, I'm going to have a takeaway, or there's something going to come from this that's going to be substantial for me?
I would say I don't go in with that expectation.
Okay.
But it almost always happens. So now it's like, I want to provide space so I can. Like, I don't want to just... See, and I was going to say I don't want to just go to a festival, but that's not true because I've done it at a festival and had a good breakthrough. So it's just, I don't know. I just like to have the space or like have a recovery time. I feel like it activates a lot of my brain, and so I have to recover my mind.
That's part of maybe integrating or integration, like taking that takeaway and seeing how you're going to apply it into your waking life. There is a recreational component for you as well, right? You talked about the last 48 hours have been kind of full as well.
I love it because I'm not hungover today, and I was up till 6 a.m. and dancing, and just a little bit of recreational drugs keeps me going. I like ketamine a lot. It has helped me in other areas, and slowing down is one of them.
Can you expand on the ketamine use in particular and how that's filtered into your sexual experience?
Yes. So I did ketamine as like a reward after I did my TED Talk. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was kind of funny.
When was the TED Talk?
September last year.
Okay, cool.
And so it was like my first experience. And I would say I kind of tried it a little bit, and I was like, they were like, oh, how was your experience? I was like, I don't know. And they were like, oh, you didn't feel it. So I had to do a little bit more, which I realized maybe I have to do a little bit more than other people. And my first experience was with my partner now, and we did get intimate after, and it really helped me like slow down. It is a dissociative drug, but it actually helped me be more in my body. Like, my mind was also other places, but it helped me, like, slow down. Like, feel each movement. Really get into my body. Like, not be in a hurry. Not be thinking about other things. My head would be clearer. And my partner noticed a difference. Like, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And so now I use that knowledge in my day-to-day life and in sex without the drug.
After having had that experience, you're able to reflect on that experience in further intimate experiences with your partner.
I can just, like, I've slowed down. I've felt and connected in a deeper way.
Did you know that you were going to be sexually intimate when you took ketamine that time with your partner after the TED Talk?
No, I didn't. No.
But you didn't have any reservations when that became evident that that's where the night was going or the day was going?
Oh, it was great, yeah. Yeah.
Had you previously used cocaine or MDMA or any other sort of illegal drug to have as a part of a sexual experience, to amplify or to color it, or?
Not for sex, no. I feel like Molly's good for, you know, sexual experiences, but it's usually I do it for like an event. And then if it happens, it happens. But yeah, it's not usually for a sexual experience.
You didn't drink last night, but you regularly drink for parties and stuff like that?
Sometimes, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I really hate the way drinks make me feel like the next day, or all the chemicals. So I know it's crazy because we're like, oh my gosh, drugs are better, which is wild. Ketamine, I don't know. I don't wake up feeling like shit. And Molly definitely takes a toll on your body though. So very mild use.
What do you think the perception is now in your peer group? I mean, you showed me a picture from the party last night. I'm assuming some other people were like indulging, you know, in similar ways. But the landscape now in terms of when you hear about psychedelics, or when you go to an event like that, or you hear about other events that are being put together, what do you think the perception is for most of your peers, most of your immediate peers? How are they viewing making a psychedelic experience happen? Is it very, very just well understood and casually approached, or it's got to be different from group to group and instance to instance?
Group to group, I would definitely say it's very socially acceptable in certain groups of mine, and we all don't really drink a ton. So I know it sounds so funny. We're like, oh yeah, we don't drink. It's like California sober. You've heard of that?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's pretty normalized, and we also don't really, I don't think any of us really do coke.
What do you think it is about taking a heightened sensory moment like a party or whatever and amplifying it further? And then, you know, why are we drawn to do that, you think?
Get out of our heads.
Yeah.
I feel like naturally as humans, we care about what others think. We're thinking of our to-do list, our stress, our obligations, and drugs do kind of help that put on the back burner. Not always, but it is helpful. And so that's what I notice. Molly opens up your mind, and you take in more colors and experiences. And so like lights and love and connection. Like I remember when I first took Molly, I was like, oh my gosh. I remember I was at a festival, a rave, and I was like, oh my God, everything's so dirty. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know about this. Like it was like a warehouse like long ago. And I was just like, ew, sweaty, gross. Like nothing's clean. The bathroom's gross. And then I took Molly, and hours later I was like, hi, I love you. Hi, hugging everyone. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's like kind of like it opens up your heart, and you can kind of like connect to people, and you're more open. And so sometimes you start noticing like, oh, maybe my humanness is getting in the way like of connection.
Have you worked into your curriculum for Sexy Business Babe a psychedelic chapter? Is it something that you discuss? Like, you know, because you talked about like when you bring who you are into different scenarios, like work in particular, and like your career, right? Like you're helping women to become better equipped to confront whatever they're going to come into by having a better sense of who they are and going into it. How has your psychedelic experience or your personal transformational experiences informed your techniques with other people in teaching? Or coaching? Is it coaching the same thing as teaching?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
teaching.
Okay.
I mean, I don't use or tell people to use. Like, I don't even know if that's legal. So I'm like, I don't know what the lines are. I know that in a lot of states like Utah, most of these are illegal. I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't.
But I didn't know if it came up, like if you're saying, how are you spending your time? What do you do after work? Do you unwind with this, or on the weekends, do you get into that? Or, and looking at the overall, because there's like a functional component to this too, right? Like microdosing in particular is a way that people are utilizing subperceptual doses of psychedelics in order to have like profound physiological and intellectual like benefit, right? Spiritual benefit.
Oh, I do love microdosing mushrooms. So one of my clients, she struggles with ADHD, and so I was like, hey, these mushrooms, like a microdose, actually really help me focus. They kind of give you like a elated feeling. And especially for people with anxiety and depression, I'm not like prescribing anything, but it is helpful. So she just ordered some. We're going to see how it goes, but it's helped me a lot. So I do totally recommend microdosing like mushrooms, and there's some that are specific for like focus or anxiety and depression. Not prescribed, but it is helpful.
You've benefited specifically from that?
Yeah. You don't feel anything because it's very mild. It's just a microdose. But when I took like one capsule a day, I noticed like one experience, I drove around like a lot. I was stuck in traffic. I was driving way more than usual. And I noticed I was more at peace and calm and still happy. And usually I'd be a little bit more reactive or, oh my gosh, driving again. I was just more at peace, and that day felt better. And then like other days I'll notice like, oh, I'm struggling with focusing. My mind's all over the place. And then at the end of the day, after I take a microdose, I'm like, oh, I actually got those two big things done and I was focused on them. I have high ADHD. So it's helpful. Like you can notice at the end of the day, it's not like you feel a difference.
Yeah. Can I dig into the ADHD with you a little bit? So how did you come to accept that ADHD is something that you have? Like when did that come to your attention, and what did it look like to contend with that, from a medical or family, or what did that mean to like become ADHD and then contend with it?
Well, the funny thing is, I know my mom always knew I had ADHD. And so when I was a kid, it was a disability. It was called a disability, ADHD.
Like your school recognized?
Yeah. No. They called it a disability. My mom was smart that she didn't say I had ADHD. I think this was helpful as a kid growing up in that age. I feel like now it's more accepted. They don't make it a disability. They know it's a learning. Like there's different styles of learning. But I liked personally being told that I didn't have ADHD as a kid, and my mom still did the things to help me with my ADHD. And then as an adult, I knew I had ADHD. I probably like subconsciously knew, but I liked that I was able to say, oh, I don't have ADHD because it was a disability. But as an adult, my mom taught me skills to work with it. And I've read books on how my mind moves faster. Like I react fast. Like if someone jumps in front of me, I catch, I land on my feet. If a car comes in front of me on the road, I stop. I'm very fast. So I have a very fast reflex. And so through my life, I've noticed that ADHD is a superpower. So I don't see it as a disability. I don't see it as something that's wrong with me. I've learned to flow with it. There's definitely struggles, but I also know there's superpowers. So like a book called Driven, I think it's called by David something. It starts with David Bracken or something. You can add it. But it's a book about people in like the military and like what's military and like squads. I don't know.
Law enforcement.
law enforcement,
Yeah.
no.
High intensity
SWAT,
jobs.
Yeah, high intensity jobs. They have ADHD and it's a skill.
It's a benefit, right? Yeah.
Like they can react to things. Like that's why we're like this, is to hunt and to stay alive. So we can take in a lot more things at once.
But it affects children adversely because they can't get their homework done because they can't focus on it long enough to do it. Is that the idea?
We have to be engaged. We have to be excited. There's different learning styles, whereas like the regular classroom isn't always the best for ADHD kids. So it's different than the norm. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think just sitting in a school listening to monotone voices is the best way to learn anyways.
How has the ADHD influenced your sexuality?
Ooh, this is a good one. And I feel like a lot of my clients struggle with this. And you don't even have to have ADHD for this struggle. But being in your head, a lot of women struggle with the to-do list. I have to do this. This isn't perfect. He didn't do this. Like, this is very common in my clients. Or being really in their head and not into their body. And so that's affected the bedroom. And there's so many different ways that have helped me get into my body. So I teach a lot of them to see what works for my clients. But like one of them is breath work. And that's also helpful for everything.
Is that called are these called embodiment practices?
Sure. I mean, breath work could, embodiment practice. It could be whatever. Breath work for anxiety, breath work to focus. Breath work is powerful. And even that alone can change your life and your sex life.
So when you started to get into the adverse effects like that it can have on sexuality and a sex life. Can you get into more detail on that? Yeah,
I would just be too in my head. I wouldn't be in my body and connected to the person. I'd be thinking of things or what I should do or what I'm doing. And that is a huge part of the experience, is the connection and the intimacy and the presence and your body. So that's a huge part. And there's so many exercises to get into your body, but that's huge. That could prevent you from having more pleasure. That could prevent you from having that really deep, strong intimacy. That can prevent you from having orgasms, especially for women. That's a very common one. The thought is huge. Overthinking, I would just say that's the biggest one.
What are some support systems that you've leaned on?
I've worked with sex coaches and therapists, and coaches need coaches. You can't see the big picture when you're inside the frame, so always having that support assistance. Honestly, my partner has helped a lot. We've grown together a lot. His support, connection, intimacy, holding space to try new things. And I think that's been the biggest. Lack of a partner that doesn't shame you or judge you is huge. To try new things and explore.
What are we still getting wrong about sexuality?
That it's wrong. That it's bad.
Is that all religion based?
No, I don't think it's all religion based. It is society. It's even like Instagram. Like you're not supposed to write the word sex. Like it's taboo still. Like I get my stuff shunned on Instagram. I get it blocked. I get it removed. I get it taken down just for talking about sex, sexuality, your body. It's not just religion. It's society. Your body is wrong. You're touching yourself. Even as kids, you're like, don't touch yourself. And you get so mad at them and they're children. It's their body part. And then they have shame about a body part. It's a body part. They're kids. They're touching a body part. So it's society, religion, social media.
Why is it the case on Instagram? Because they're trying to prevent what are they trying to prevent? I've never read anything about why that is the protocol for Instagram, that you cannot. I've seen it spelled S-X, but have you ever read anything or heard from anybody as to why that's the case?
This is all speculation, but yes, one, they will say it's, oh, for kids and all the things. Then why don't they do what YouTube does and put, this is not for kids? So only 18 plus can look at it. Like YouTube does that. My stuff is often 18 plus. Great. I'm happy about that. But I think that sexual energy is expansive and life force energy. Same with psychedelics like LSD and mushrooms. And it is expanding our mind so we don't think inside a box. It's making us, just look at California, for example, be creative, not have 9 to 5s, not be controlled by the government. It's harder to control somebody that is expansive and thinks outside the box. I wish I knew more stats, but I did listen to like a documentary, and I wonder if you know this. You probably know this, but they made, during like the 70s, I think it was, like people were the hippie age and doing LSD and open-minded, but they didn't have enough people to get into the military.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they like really like forced it. What did they do? They like,
they made psychedelic drugs illegal.
Yeah. And then like made it like super shunned. Like they put blasts on the articles and newspapers of how terrible it is, and that's where it started.
Yeah.
Of like LSD. Like LSD acid sounds like the worst drug ever.
Yeah.
When it's like the only one that you can't die on. It's the one that expands your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of problematic history in terms of looking at what you have access to, why you should have access to it, and even understanding what it is in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So, but I just think the parallels between how we understand or don't understand the power of our sexuality and the power of our own insight, which is what can be curated and brought about through a psychedelic experience. Are you surprised to see people coming to you with the same problems over and over? Does it ever like shock you that, you know, you get through a cohort or you finish a class and then people come right back around with the same concerns?
No, not at all. This sounds super hippie. We're all one. We're all connected. We do have similar issues. That's why people make courses. That you're like, oh, I'm going to teach one-on-one and everything's going to be new and specific to that person. Sorry, guys. We all have similar problems. Like the root of it is similar. So once you start working with a lot of people, it's similar. You teach the same thing over and over. And so no, I do not find it crazy at all.
What have you gotten into out here since coming to California in particular? Of course, if anybody's listening and they feel like they need to leave their hometown, Tia is a good example of somebody who can start a new life and to find new community. But what have been some of the most inspiring things that you've gotten involved with that have been like, yeah, I'm right at home?
Oh, everything.
That's good to hear.
So my whole life changed. I work for myself full time. I didn't before. I did have a business when I was in Utah, but then I grew 2 businesses here. And going to sex parties, exploring my sexuality. When I first moved here, one of my friends was a sex coach, and we started exploring and going to play parties, sex parties, Sanctum and Kinky Rabbit and things like that. And it really opened my mind and helped me explore my sexuality without shame and see how people are open and also see the dark and the light sides of sex. And now I've found my community and my crew. That one was not my crew at those play parties. But over the years, I found my crew, and it is fucking phenomenal to have a community that it's normal to talk about sex, to be open for love, to be open for connection, to kiss multiple people, to love multiple people, to play and explore sexually without shame. Like, life-changing.
Talk to me about the dark and the light sides of sex. You just alluded to at this one gathering or maybe multiple gatherings where you saw a darker component of sex and sexuality. Now, these are sex parties.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly are you talking about? It's a play party, or is it an orgy, or what is it? People are invited to a gathering specifically to have multiple partners in one night, or they're all different, right?
They're all different.
Yeah.
So I personally go to ones that are vetted. You have to submit pictures. It's kind of a high barrier to entry. You have to get approved.
Meaning that they're only letting attractive people into the
to an
event.
extent.
Yeah.
Or people you know, or money or something.
Yeah. There's some governing
Sanctum
body
is
that's
a good example of that. I'm not like promoting Sanctum, by the way, which I'm saying the word.
But it's a business.
But it's a business, but it's a very elite, expensive, like, yeah. So that one, 6 years ago, it is a party that's elite. There used to be celebrities and rich people. You had to be rich, pretty, or successful or something. You had to know somebody. That was my first one. And I was just like, whoa. And there's like doms, and it's like an experience. It's like a regular party. Super beautiful, gorgeous cocktails in a penthouse. But then there's like sexual innuendo. There's a show. It's sexy. It's red lights. And then over the night, you can play. There's never, you have to play. You have to play with multiple people. You could go there and not play or kiss anybody. It's being in that sexual flow and experience is awesome. It's a different energy. And I loved it. I didn't have sex, actually, at those play parties. Especially the first few times, I never did. I kissed, played with my friends, but yeah, actually never had sex with men. It just wasn't my safety at that time. And it was still fun. It was so fun to be in that environment. To cover the dark and the light, I would say there is a dark side to sex and your sexual energy. It could be manipulative. It could be hurtful. You could be disassociating or using it to get something. I don't think that's always the healthiest way. Sometimes it's what people need to do. Some people enjoy it. That's different. Manipulation could be a darker side.
What's an example of manipulation?
Honestly, even relationships where in marriage or relationships where they hold sex as a prize. I feel like that is not the healthiest way, where they're like, oh, you didn't do this, I'm going to hold sex away from you. Sex should be a mutually beneficial thing that you and your partner are both embarking on and connecting with. And if that's not the case, some healing might help. It should be both people are excited and both people benefit from the experience. And using it as like, you're not doing this, you don't get this, is detrimental in my opinion. And there's dark sides I've been in the dark side of using sex as a way to disconnect or get validation or connection for intimacy and feelings and dating, where maybe I didn't feel safe and it was a time where I didn't feel connected to them. It's kind of like using somebody to masturbate. Like, are you actually connecting to them? And that's fine. You can do that. I'm not saying that's wrong. You can do that. But for me, after I noticed there was a pattern that it wasn't aligning with my goals. So those are some dark sides. Light side could be using your sexual energy through dance and then doing a painting. It could be having sex with your partner and bonding. There's no wrong or bad. So it's just dark and light, but we're not saying these things are wrong. Like, I don't want to have that narrative. So
yeah. I don't think that's what's coming across. What I think is interesting is I think there's probably a lot of people that would be attending play parties if they were invited. And I wonder about access to these sorts of. I mean, Do you think that when sexual experiences like that are only accessible to people who are successful or societally attractive, is there another echelon of people who are thirsting for that or wanting it, but just it's not a part of their lives?
Oh, there's plenty of parties for everybody. Go to plush parties, open. I'm trying to think, if you look up your city lifestyle events, I'm giving you Google keywords here. Plush parties, lifestyle events, go to Temptations Island. I know, I'm not a sponsor, but Temptations is an open party in Cancun. Like, there's so many different ways to explore. This is just sanctum, okay? Like, I almost want to, like, cut that word out. I'm sorry I'm promoting them so much. I'm actually not.
It's a reference.
It's a reference to a play party that's highly publicized. That I didn't feel like that was my community. So I'm actually not. It was, back in the day, it was just one of the more popular ones. There are ways to get involved. Doesn't matter what you look like or what your sexual identity is. There's lots. There's like BDSM. There's like a BDSM balls. It doesn't matter what you look like. For that specific event that's vetted, there is an imbalance for genders. Like, men pay thousands of dollars. Women often go for free, and it's based on looks. And the other is success and money. So when I went there years ago, there was an imbalance. I didn't feel safe in that imbalance. It's changed a lot, but
other communities are not like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other communities are open, and it's not just what you look like, or if you're skinny, or if you're straight. You know, there's a lot of communities that are going to accept your kink or your weird or there's tantra. There's a lot, actually. There's a lot. Look up those keywords. Look up events. Travel to one. Go to a festival. Go to a tantra festival. Go to a BDSM ball if you're interested in that. There's so many.
We've had discussions in the past with other guests about sex work specifically, right? And how that's viewed today. Historically and over, centuries, it was viewed differently. One of my very first guests on the podcast was somebody who had studied this and talked about it a lot, and shares about it a lot, especially on social media. But, it's a part of our health and wellness, isn't it? Like having a consistent access and connection to the truth of our individual sexuality.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we continue to be, what are some of the things that your clients come to you with concerns about? Like, I have this desire, it's not being expressed, or I feel like I can't find the words for this, or this has been a point of frustration for me for years and I'm trying to work through it. But how do we navigate that?
Yeah. I just want to tell you that unless your kink is hurting somebody non-consensually, you're not weird, you're not wrong, you're not bad. Those are beliefs that have maybe been put on you. And I think understanding that first is so helpful. So you're not wrong or bad. And then, unless you're hurting somebody non-consensually, that is the biggest thing. And that your sexual desires, your needs could be super weird, and it's okay. And it's awesome. I felt so wrong for my desires at first. So, what was your question? That was the first part. What was the other part? Like, how do you navigate it?
Yeah.
I would say exploring. Because right now, let's say, like for me, I lived in a small town where it wasn't talked about. It wasn't even in shows and movies, because I'm very into like BDSM and pain, and I felt very wrong or bad, or what pictures and even Netflix still and like shows puts out to look like is that you've been hurt or you've been
you're
abused.
damaged if that's
you're
the
damaged,
case. Yeah.
and that's why you like BDSM. That is not the case. It's not. I'm not attracted to BDSM because I was abused. That's what I was like, what's wrong with me? Why do I like this? When 50 Shades of Grey came out, because they really hone in on, he was abused, so now he likes it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's wrong with me? So what's helpful is to find a community, to talk to people, to go online, get in chat groups, go into Facebook groups even, or find sexual ones. There's like different platforms that are more open. Find them. Talk to people that also have similar interests. You're not alone. There's so many people that like the same thing. And healing, get a sex coach, get a sex therapist. Explore your desires. Feel how good it is to do those things. Start accepting it and rework that mindset that you've been programmed that it's wrong. It's so freeing.
How is sex psychedelic?
Ooh, that's juicy. I like that. I definitely feel like sexual energy, which doesn't have to be sex, the physical act, is like being on a high. Like without drugs, without any substances, it is life force energy. It is, sometimes I feel like I'm high. Like happy in that love and that feeling, and you can really actually create life with that energy. So it is, it's powerful. So yeah, it is amazing, and tapping into that and exploring that energy helps you think outside the box, like psychedelics. Often if I'm having a shitty day or I'm like getting blocked with business, if I allow some pleasure or dancing or movement or tapping into that like sexual energy, it opens up my mind and I get more ideas and I get clarity, and then I start getting into that like flow state. So that's how it's psychedelic. It's like it gets you in a different state and opens your mind.
It feels like there's an analog here with you being a guide, like someone would be a guide for someone else in a psychedelic experience with the sexual experience, and incorporating the sexual experiences, the lessons learned, the takeaways, the nutrition into your day-to-day life. And I'm sure that the women who are working with you in your courses appreciate the environment that you're creating, because it's easy to tell that you're very sincere about it, you're very enthusiastic about it, and you're very candid about it, which I really appreciate. So I'm very grateful that you took the time to come on the show today and talk with us. And I'd love to have you be a part of the Psychedelic Spotlight family and contribute to this overall narrative as we continue to try to invite people to the table to talk about not only their psychedelic experiences, but the experiences that inform their day-to-day lives, their relationships with their loved ones, with their families, with their coworkers. Tian Lynn, the Sexy Business Babe, where can people find out about your work and be connected to you?
Yes, I would love you to connect with me on Instagram. That's where I'm most. DM me a question. And if you want to work with me, I would love to have a chat and see if we're a right fit, because I would love to help you break out of shame and own your confidence and have the best sex of your life. And I'm also levelupwithtia.com. And that's my website. You can learn more about me. And my Sexy Biz Babe podcast has lots about sex and taboo topics and more about sex parties if you're like, whoa, we're BDSM. All those fun taboo topics, if you want to dive more into that. I have lots of great interviews, and yeah, you can learn more. So hope to see you guys there.
Delving into the taboo topics, it's what we're into doing. We appreciate your time, Tia. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.